Welcome everybody, so my name's Sean Mullen, I'm the Involvement Manager for the NECG. We're going to just run through what the NECG is and what we do, but probably most of you have heard of it, but for the benefit of those that haven't, we'll run through it, and then we're just going to talk about some of the things that the NECG have been involved in, and what it's meant to members of the NECG being involved and taking part really. And then we'll finish off just with a quick look at some of the recommendations that we made to the Changing Futures programme. So here we are over the NECG, and I make no apologies. It is going to be quite a few slides, but that's the way it is. You can't escape anyway, so there's no getting away from us, so you're stuck with us. So here we go. So who are the NECG? The NECG is a lived experience representative group for people using services from the National Lottery Community Funds Fulfilling Life programme and the new Changing Futures programme. So that's who the NECG is. What's our aim? Our aim of the NECG is to ensure that lived experience shapes systems change and creates future services that are co-produced, most importantly, accessible and designed for people who have experienced multiple disadvantage. So that's our aim really, to get co-production. NECG and systems change. So what we want to do is change the system. We use the term multiple disadvantage. It used to be known as multiple complex needs, but we're trying to move away from that because the onus is then on the individual, like it's the individual's fault. And what we're saying is not the individual's fault, it's the system that's letting them down. The system's supposed to protect people, and it's not. It's actually letting people down and making people's lives worse. So what we're after is proper systems change, really. So the NECG uses the lived experience to try to create systems change, and we can create systems change through the use of co-production with those who are disadvantaged by the system. We know people face disadvantage, and we know that many people we work with face multiple disadvantage from a system that's meant to protect them, but it's failing them. So we want to do something about that. However, on top of this multiple disadvantage, there are also inequities faced by communities who suffer both multiple disadvantage and the iniquity of provision of services. And it's these inequities that can only be truly highlighted by using the voice of lived experience. And those that face these inequities, that's what we aim to do, get rid of these inequities. We all talk about equality. Equality is a wonderful thing, but we've got to realise that we don't all start from the same base. Some people are born with silver spoons in their mouths, some people are born with wooden spoons in their mouths, and some people don't have a spoon at all. So to create equality, actually sameness, doesn't fix the problem, really. What we've got to do is create equity within the system, create fairness. So if there are barriers to seeing your future, that we take away those barriers, and we give those people who are disadvantaged from the start, maybe the advantage of creating a fairer playing field, or as fair playing field as we can. So equality versus equity. With equality, we're saying that everybody has the same starting point. They don't, and we know that. So we want to create, more equity in the system to give people a boost. But what we're really after is this third scenario, to take all the blockages out of the system so everybody can have an equal chance and everybody can see a hopeful future, really, a way forward with hope, and with a future mapped out for them, whereas a lot of people haven't got any hope at the moment. So that's what the NECG, I think, fulfilling ours aim to do, really, was to create equity within the system and equality for all. We came out with 5 strategic priorities for the NECG, and everything that we've looked at, we've tried to put through the prism of these priorities. So helping create services designed for people with co-occurring substance, alcohol use and mental health, sometimes known as dual diagnosis. And this includes providing support for people who want support but are not yet abstinent. We hear so many times that people go to services, particularly around mental health, so I've got a mental health problem, but I'm still using, so we can't support you, you've got to go and get your substance misuse or whatever sorted. They go there and they go, sorry, we can't help you, you've got a mental health issue. And even if you do go to get help for your substance misuse, they say you've got to be abstinent. Well, many people are using because of previous trauma. So how are they going to stop using if they've got that trauma and you haven't dealt with the trauma of the mental health? So it's a chicken and an egg. So we want to say, stop asking people to be abstinent at the beginning of that journey of recovery. You know, that's something that maybe you want to aim for later on, but at the beginning it's ridiculous to ask people to be abstinent. So we provide, we want to say to organisations, don't ask people to be abstinent. We want to improve support for people leaving prison and people with repeat contact with the criminal justice system. So many people caught up in the revolving door because of trauma, because of addiction, stuff like that. It goes hand in hand. So we need to stop that revolving door. Develop approaches to prevent drug-related deaths and adapt to changes in drug use, e.g. the rise of crack cocaine, prescription drugs, and the new psychoactive substances such as spice and stuff like that. And pay homage to Surfing Sofas there in the background and his great poem, about drugs and hugs, basically. And we need more hugs and less drugs, but we can only get there by supporting people. Develop an appropriate accommodation option for people who are experiencing multiple disadvantage. Housing is key. Housing is the island that everything else comes from. So if you don't have secure housing and supporting that housing, you're not going to be able to move on. And we also design services, or want to design services that are appropriate for women that have experienced multiple disadvantage, because things are different for women, and particularly women who have children. So, that has to be taken into account. Just to go through the process, so what we do is we get questions coming from statutory services or research questions. What we do is we send those questions out to the different fulfilling lives areas, the local areas where hopefully they can discuss those issues with their lived experience members. We then, about a month or so after we sent the questions out, we hold regional meetings. So the NECG has a northern region, a Midlands region and a southern region. And we hold those regional meetings where we get people from lived experience coming to the meetings online since COVID, where we discuss the questions and we get that lived experience voice back, and we try to come up with some recommendations. You'll see, once we've done the 3 regional meetings, we try to write up some recommendations, and we come back again about a month later and we hold regional meetings where we go over our recommendations and see what the lived experience people think about those recommendations, whether they want to change them, adapt them. And then, and this is the run that we're on now, so we're currently working on the government's 10-year mental health strategy, getting that lived experience voice about how to support people. So next week, the 23rd of June, we'll be holding a national meeting where we're going to bring the recommendations back to the Department of Health and Social Care with the lived experience NECG recommendations. So that's how system works, and we've got a couple of different groups. We've got a women's network, Challenging Future subgroup, because we're also working with Challenging Futures, regional and local meetings, the comms subgroup, and we've also got an equality, diversity and inclusion group now as well as part of the NECG, trying to get that sort of rounded voice and lived experience. And basically the mantra is be positive and try to focus on solutions. We can sit there moaning all day and all night about what's gone wrong. It turns people off, but also it upsets people. It can be re-traumatising. Let's look at the solutions and how we can move forward instead of looking at what's gone wrong. So that's the mantra we try to put out to the members. And I'll hand over to my colleague Charlotte.
Yeah, so co-production, here's some definitions. Co-production happens when the participation of people with lived experience is given equal importance to that staff of the organisation they're working with. Their input has equal weight, including in both the design and delivery of services or a project. Co-production builds upon, but it's a significant shift and step up from user involvement. There is a difference between co-production and participation. Participation means being consulted, while co-production means being equal partners and co-creators. Co-production demands that public service staff shift from fixers who focus on problems to enablers who focus on abilities. Their job is to redefine the client or patient before them, not according to their needs, but according to their abilities, and to encourage them to put those abilities to work. The relationship where professionals and citizens share power to design, plan, assess and deliver support together. And this is the ladder of co-production. And the diagram shows most services may be operating in the middle of the ladder, which is the doing for, which is a big improvement from doing to in the past. But we're aiming for the top two rungs of the ladder, doing with, which is working in equal partnership. So firstly, we have co-design, where a person uses their lived experience to help design the service and to shape it using their experiences of what has and has not worked for them in the past. And co-production at the top, where people who use services work together with policy and decision makers, managers, programme leads and paid staff on an equal basis to design the service together. Basic principle of co-production is that those who are going to use the service are best placed to design it. They know from past experiences what will and may or will not work for them, and therefore for others like them who will use it in the future. And hopefully co-production is not only used to design and shape services, it also becomes invaluable in shaping policies and best practice. This is the aim of the Changing Futures programme and of the NECG. And this leads me on to another project I was involved with, which had a great impact on me, and whilst not strictly co-produced, involved engagement and consultation in the middle of the ladder to a very high degree, and that was the Dane Curran Black Review of Drugs Policy. So in the autumn of 2020, the NECG received a call from evidence for the Dane Curran Black Independent Review of Drugs, a statutory government report on the drug crisis in the UK. We were asked to use the collective voice of our lived experience members to answer certain questions. What are the difficulties people face when trying to access drug treatment services? This links to NECG priorities 1 and 3. And what could make it easier for people to stay engaged? Linked with some of our priorities as well. How can people's mental health needs be met? And what are the housing and employment needs of those in treatment and recovery, which cover nearly all of the NECG's priorities. We had a wealth of data on the difficulties of trying to access drug treatment services. So very broadly, the existing ones were inflexible and designed with a one-size-fits-all approach. We thought improving access to treatment for women was a priority, as well as improving support for those leaving prison to prevent the revolving door of repeat sentences. And we knew there was a desperate need to develop appropriate accommodation for those with multiple disadvantage. Mixed hostels and temporary accommodation may be housing, but it's not conducive to recovery if the person is placed in a different town, far from their support network, or in a wet hostel when they're trying to get clean. Similarly, we knew access to drug treatment services for those with dual diagnosis needs to be improved. Of course, there should be services where people can get help for both their mental health and substance misuse. The two are so entwined. Yet we were hearing that people who weren't abstinent were being refused access to mental health services and counselling. So the report was published in February 2021 with a Part 2 follow-up in August. And it detailed the extent of the drug crisis in the UK with an evidence-based way forward on drug treatment and recovery, with Professor Black listing recommendations for improvements to every single area of the system. It really was a privilege for the NECG and Fulfilling Lives to have been able to give evidence that was included in such a detailed and prominent report. Hopefully now these changes that really do need to be made to support many more people in their recovery will finally start to happen. And that's some of my personal experience of being involved. I just felt really excited when I heard that we were going to be in this government report. We were finally going to have our say included, which emphasised that the public provision that currently exists for prevention, treatment and recovery is not fit for purpose and urgently needs repair. And I had the privilege to present some of our evidence to Dame Carol Black herself when she attended our national meeting in September 2020. Although it was online, she still came across as warm, empathic and genuinely interested in what we had to say. She believes that addiction is a chronic health condition and like diabetes and arthritis needs long-term follow-up. How refreshing to have someone at government level put put that in her report. It instantly removes stigma and gets people to start thinking about addiction and addicts and alcoholics in a different way. Being an ambassador for Fulfilling Lives and part of the NECG has boosted my confidence and self-esteem and made me feel that I can hold my own when speaking to Dane or any other decision makers or government officials. I do not feel ashamed of sharing my lived experience. And as presenting today in Current Black showed me, decision makers and stakeholders are not intimidating. They value our voice and our opinions, and they know that we, the voice of lived experience, are essential for achieving positive and sustainable systems change. Thank you. I'm now going to hand you over to Shay to share his experience of a roundtable of applause.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Shay. That's a brilliant Charlotte, thank you. So, the House of Lords Roundtable was looking at how public services have coped during the last 12 months of the COVID pandemic. In 2021, myself and Jackie, two NECG members, reported back to the House of Lords on how public services had worked with people facing multiple disadvantage during the COVID-19 pandemic. We were asked to focus and give feedback on the following questions set by the committee. They wanted to test a new approach between government and local areas that would lead to improvements for individuals, service and the whole system. So they asked, number one, have services become better, worse or remain the same at identifying and meeting your needs over the last 12 months? Number two, what has the role of the voluntary sector been in supporting you over the last 12 months? Number three, has your experience of accessing digital services changed over the last 12 months? And finally, what were the positives and negatives of using these new digital services, and have you been involved in the design of these services? The government told the Lords Public Services Committee that it recognises the value of co-production and designing services with and around those who use it. They also asked, in the last 12 months, have you felt more or less involved in deciding how services should meet your needs? What changes would you like to see made to the services that you use and need over the next 12 months? On the 10th of December 2020, the government announced the launch of a new programme, Changing Futures, Changing Systems, to trial new approaches to services for adults experiencing multiple disadvantage. We gave them recommendations and produced a report called Flipped Turned Upside Down. How COVID-19 improved services for people experiencing multiple disadvantage. But while we waited for these recommendations to take hold, the change from my perspective was enormous. I want to give you a little bit about my journey with the NECG and addiction in general. So if we go backtrack 11 years, and my latest attempt at detox was just beginning. At that time I struggled to hold a conversation without the aid of alcohol. Now fast forward roughly 10 years, and the NECG, Sean offered me the opportunity to give evidence to the House of Commons Select Committee about the impact of COVID on services. My first thought was, no way. Why would the House of Lords take a word I had to say seriously? I then began to reconsider why I'd started volunteering as a lived experience expert in the first place. I soon realised that these were exactly the people I aspired to speak to as an expert, the people who make decisions concerning how funds are allocated to the very services which help me and my recovery. So I decided to go for it and trust they treated me on an equal footing. So after the first Lords meeting via Zoom, I was pleasantly surprised that they made me feel welcome, and I soon relaxed into sharing my experience of housing the homeless during lockdown. Reflecting afterwards, I realised I so nearly missed this opportunity due to my lack of self-esteem and my inner voice telling me, why would I take an adult work seriously? But thankfully, the confidence I had gained volunteering with the NECG allowed me to persevere and realise now I was an active, responsible citizen who was actually contributing to helping the recovery community and society on the whole. In hindsight, it dawned on me that lived experience experts need to be heard at the highest levels, as they experience services on a day-to-day level. We can give live feedback on what is working and what is not. At the moment, funders and services have to wait for end-of-year reports and feedback to reallocate funds, when after 3 months, experts on the front line can give this feedback. My whole involvement with the NECG as a member has been a real eye-opener. I had actually imagined I knew all about recovery services for homelessness, mental health, addiction and offending. Over the last 2 years, meeting fellow expert NECG members and listening to their experiences and wisdom gained on their personal journey, I've truly grasped how little I actually knew, and I've learned something new from every meeting with them. And with that, I'll hand over to Julie.
Thank you. Hi, Julian. I'm going to sit if you don't mind. Yeah, personal lived experience from Opportunity Nottingham, also expert citizen. The lived experience was in create systems change. NECG priority 4, developing appropriate accommodation options for people who are experiencing multiple disadvantage. CFE research and the University of Sheffield have collected data on people supported by the Fulfilling Life programme over the past 8 years. As a result, we have some great statistics on patterns of homelessness. However, numbers only tell part of the story. This is where the expertise of the NECG has helped. Together, CFE and the NECG have produced a joint report called More Than a Roof, addressing homelessness with people experiencing multiple disadvantage. Housing and its importance. This report was called More Than a Roof, based on a quote from one of the people who had lived the experience of homelessness, who provided many of the insights in this report. This neatly encapsulates the need to address homelessness, not just with housing, and not just any housing, but with ongoing holistic support to help people settle and maintain their tenancies. Patterns of homelessness are different for men and women. Women will hide due to fears of violence and can be in dangerous, exploitative situations. However, they may still be under a roof and therefore are not able to access rough sleeping support or be engaged by outreach teams. Our main focus, the 2 main questions we asked our members were, how important is it to get the housing right, especially for those facing multiple disadvantage? And number 2, what helped them get settled? We believe housing is the foundation that recovery can be built on. It's the beginning of getting things started. Okay, here's a bit about me. Housing was a stepping stone that enabled me to move forward with my life and help me deal with other disadvantages that I was facing. However, housing is more than just a roof. It's more than just a place to sleep. That housing has to be made safe and welcoming and homely. It needs to be your safe place. And if it's not, then all the other issues will be that much harder to deal with. I was in recovery. I was sent to a drug house with loads of people using. I ended up using again. Also being involved with the drug trade when I was trying to get clean. So I left the house, made myself intentionally homeless. So there was no one prepared to help me. It sent me backwards, all because my housing had not been safe. It is imperative for people facing SMD, multiple disadvantage, to have safe housing. This is the basis from which other parts of recovery flow. From myself, safe housing, I was able to stabilise my substance use, eventually getting clean. This enabled me to support my own mental health recovery. From this, I was able to get involved in my community and eventually to start volunteering in Nottingham as an expert citizen, and then with the NECG. Yeah, the road to recovery can be long and a winding road, but it's a journey that's made easier when you have a safe and secure home to go to. The supported housing group that I joined, NCHA in Nottingham, enabled me to deal with my mental health and to support me, which came from my secure housing. This has been the foundation to my recovery and maintaining my mental health. Without this, I may have continued in the spiral of mental health episodes and addiction and insecure housing, potentially leading to homelessness again. How did it make me feel being involved? Well, as a person with lived experience, being a part of the NECG has meant I've been able to find understanding, purpose and new meaning. I've been given the opportunity to develop myself, and hopefully, with support, I can convert my lived experience into knowledge, helping others and myself. It's a bit like what I've been through hasn't just been a complete waste of time. I'll pass you over to Des.
And I just want to say a big thank you to Des, who stepped in at the last minute because one of our other members couldn't make it today, so thanks a lot, Des.
Hi everyone, I'm Des. I'm from the north east of England, experts by experience member in NECG too. So the NECG and dual diagnosis questions, these are the recommendations moving forward for changing futures. Do you think it's an issue that affects people on a regular basis? And do you have any recent examples of people being excluded and not being able to access services because of their co-occurring needs? Do you have any examples of best practice, good practice that support people with co-occurring mental health and substance misuse issues? And what would be your solutions of how services and the system could work better for people with co-occurring mental health and substance misuse? Now, all these questions are being put across to all kind of NECG areas as well, and both nationally as well. We prefer the term co-occurring to describe experience of mental health and substance alcohol use. However, it's useful to think about the term dual diagnosis because it more accurately reflects how the system works. Our criticisms and solutions are a response to the problems that come from designing a system based upon the idea of duality, or splitting into two and dependent on clinical diagnosis. The system is broken. We found that overwhelmingly people experiencing co-occurring mental health and alcohol substance use found it difficult to access services and receive the support they required. Mental health services were said to require complete abstinence before engaging with people. That's been my experience over the years. I've had first-hand experience of this where I was trying to get psychotherapy, but they wouldn't give it to me until I had been clean for a year. Too common story we hear all the time. I think that addiction is a mental health issue, and this would help reduce stigma. Some people may not want to be abstinent, just may not be ready. But I still need to get to that support with mental health so my using doesn't bring on the psychological issues. If they have dual diagnosis, people don't want to touch them, especially therapists. They want to be clean before they can do anything. Many people come up against the drug psychosis issue. They are not taken seriously because it is just seen as the drugs, and they are seen as less important or of less value. There is a complex and dynamic relationship between trauma, mental health and substance use. It is it's near impossible to draw clear distinctions between the issues. They constantly overlap, merge and affect each other. By separating mental health and substance use, as services do, you create a system that doesn't work with the whole person. this dual system just clearly doesn't work. So these are the recommendations. One service, work with the whole person, created co-produced services that are designed and equipped to simultaneously support a person experiencing mental health and substance use issues. End the problematic artificial dual split and end to the need for extra referrals and assessments. Access warm and welcome engagement. Services need greater flexibility around the thresholds and less dependency on a clinical diagnosis for people to access services. Support must start immediately. Peer-to-peer supporters must be embedded in the services and lead the trust and relationship building process with someone. First contact services. Bureaucratic assessment and support processes must be replaced by a more patient relationship building approach, offering choice and flexibility to enable a person to engage in a way that works best for them. A strength-based, flexible and varied support offer. Services must be built upon an understanding of trauma, hope and an aspirational strength-based approach that develops skills, relationships and enjoyment as a way to change behaviours and build new identities. This service offers should include access to longer-term talking therapies, peer support, support groups, family support, community opportunities, training, education and recovery colleges, etc. Personal budgets will enable this approach. Equality of access and service. Ethnicity, race and religion services must reflect the communities they serve. Services, not people, can be hard to reach. There must be strong partnerships with community groups and the use of peer support to enable engagement. Gender services need to provide women-only safe spaces across multiple community hubs. With peered female support, supporters must be as part of the staff team. The wider system and funding. The wider system, GPs, housing workers, police, probation, need training to understand the impact of trauma, mental health and substance use on individuals and how to link people with services. We support Dean Carol Black's recommendations, especially more funding for the drug treatment and recovery service. And all commissioning of services should be co-produced with people with lived experience. What it means to be an NECG member. Being part of the NECG group has been a mental health boost for me that I wasn't expecting. I quickly found out that my thoughts, opinions and lived experience really mattered. I have learnt so much about people with multiple disadvantage, our struggles with the system, what works and doesn't work. Our ideas on how the system could be changed so people with multiple disadvantage could be met where they're always being considered and appreciated. The NECG gave me an opportunity to grow in my personal recovery. I have learned new skills, such as assisting with slides and presenting. The NECG has opened up my new interests for me and helped me to realise that my life still has value. This has been so important to the we.
To all the guys here, and especially to Des for stepping in there. He hadn't seen these slides before. some of us have seen them. So just carrying on with some of the things that the members said about being a member of the NECG. I feel part of a bigger network. It really energises me every time I attend a meeting, because I realise in each of our different areas we have got so much in common. We might be working on slightly different projects, we have different life stories, but there's so much overlap in our stories, and I enjoy the diversity as well. We share our triumphs, we share our frustrations. Another person said, as a person of lived experience, being a member of the National Expert Citizens Group has been great. Being involved in changing the system to be more inclusive and easier for everyone to navigate. It's given me the chance to help others in ways I could never have dreamed of, and in return, helping others in new and different ways has been beneficial to my mental health. Shay, you want to carry on?
I don't think I roll through it.
I can do if you want.
Can I have you?
Yeah, okay. So another member said, like many people, the trauma that addiction, homelessness and suicidal ideation attempts have brought me over the years has been heartbreaking and extremely difficult. I always promised myself that if I ever made it back into any kind of normal life, that I would endeavour to share how I did that and what was beneficial and the roadblocks that made it often seem impossible. The NECG has given me a platform that is professional in its delivery as a group, whilst being informal, friendly and approachable in its organisation. I think that's really important. It's very reassuring to me that I feel valued, respected, and I'm able to give honest, often raw feedback that is never judged, frowned upon or ignored. It can be traumatic to bring up past experience, but since I know I'm being listened to and that my experience is being shared to the right audience, then I feel safe. And safety is what we all need, isn't it? You know, to tell our stories and, you know, to feel wanted. So, you're all here, we're all here because Fulfilling Lives has come to an end. And what's taking on the baton is changing through futures. So what the NECG was asked to do was members such as Des, such as Shay, actually sat on the awarding panels for the Changing Futures project. And these were the guys that awarded the project. So if there's anybody from an area that didn't get the money, blame them. But if you did, then any bribes go to them, funnel through me. But we wanted to carry on the legacy of Fulfilling Lives by supporting the handing over of the baton to the Changing Futures programme. However, in order to hand over that baton, we had to give the lived experience view and voice as to what we expected Changing Futures to do. We therefore put together a couple of questions to get the NECG members and their areas to think about and give feedback and guidance to the Changing Futures project. So, you know, the thing I showed you earlier, how the process happens, this is what we did with these questions around the Changing Futures as well. So we explored these two main questions. This is what we put to areas. What do you think local areas can do to ensure services are accessible to people who are experiencing multiple disadvantage? And how can we sustain engagement? It's very easy to get people to just come in through the door, but how do you keep them coming through the door? How do you keep that people maintaining their connections with services and services maintaining connections with individuals? And the second question was, what does co-production look like to you in practice? What should we expect to see from local areas and what would make a good service? So these were the two main questions that we put out to the areas, and this is what we got back, and these became the recommendations from the NECG to the Changing Futures areas. So, firstly, raise awareness of services and challenge the stigma with effective advertising in public spaces, shops, bus stops, billboards, clear, easy understanding message aimed at people who need services and widen the scope of who refers and easy self-referral. There's so much going on in all of the cities that you're all from, but who knows what's going on? It's, you know, it's the best kept secret in the world. We need to tell the public out there, we need to tell the families of people who are suffering from multiple disadvantage, there is help, this is where to go. So that's what the NECG said, raise awareness through campaigns. So everybody knows what multiple disadvantage is, everybody knows what services are available in your town, and where to get that support. The members also said, improve early intervention. Train people in the wider range of services to be aware of multiple disadvantages. For example, The DWP, stop sanctioning people, who find it hard to get out of bed, never mind, get to the signing on point. Tell GPs what multiple disadvantages, and GP receptionists, that one's for you, Winston. Tell probation what it is, tell the police, housing workers, etc. Explain to them that people have got multiple things going on, and to bear that in mind. And make it easy for them to refer people. People must be able to access services before they hit rock bottom. We just think, why did it take me to standing on the bridge looking over before somebody's got me help? Get that help to people earlier. It saves lives, it saves money. Include peer supporters in inducting, promoting and welcoming people to a service. Peer supporters are essential for enabling someone to access a service and sustain them in the long-term engagement. People who have been there, seen it, done it, got the t-shirt can be the light at the end of the tunnel for people coming through. So use that expertise. An individual must be able to choose how it is best for them to engage with the service. An outreach offer is essential. Meeting in neutral communities, meeting in neutral community spaces, coffee shops, buy somebody a coffee. Buy them a tea, buy them a chai latte if you're being really out there. Find some creative spaces where you can meet people, where they can get involved in something that maybe they've never tried before. You never know, they might like it. Phone them up, use video calls, go for a walk, etc. Engage with people. This has to be a genuine choice with real flexibility. Some people don't know what they like, so open the world up to them and let them find out what they like. Services need to be agile, flexible, think outside the box, but most of all be patient with people, and it needs to be on an individual's timescale, not the service's timescale. Services need to adapt, and we saw some of that adaptation during COVID actually, and we're saying let's not go back to the way it was before, let's keep some of that good practice. For trauma-informed approaches, all staff working with people experiencing multiple disadvantages must be trained in trauma-informed approaches, and including statutory services such as the DWP, probation and the police. There's so many times the police are first responders to mental health issues who aren't trained in that. They come from a point of view of stopping a situation. Now, they're going to come in and say, let's sit down and have a cup of tea and let's talk about what's going on. They're going to see somebody sort of kicking off because they're having a mental health episode and taser them, which, we had an issue here a couple of years ago, Damien Atkinson in the Midlands, who used to be an Aston Villa footballer, having a mental health issue. 2 police officers came, they tasered him, they then kicked him in the head, gave him brain damage, the guy died. The 2 police eventually lost their jobs, but if they'd have been probably trained in trauma, that may not have happened. Each area and service within that area must have a strategic plan about how it will implement a trauma-informed approach. This is about more than training services. This is about more than training services. Services must reflect on how they need to change. All assessment support processes, interventions must be redesigned to be trauma-informed. And if people were trauma-informed, they could work better, they could do their jobs better, and they would get better outcomes. Services must be creative in developing trauma-informed spaces, create welcoming spaces that people want to visit. Dust out those old sofas, get them in there, Don't worry about the stains, get them in there as long as they're comfy, people will sit on them. Make places welcoming, and people will come, they will open up. All support services must emphasise an individual's strengths, creativity and offer positive opportunities. There must be an end to the use of bureaucratic deficit-focused assessments. What's your problems? Do you know what I mean? What is stopping you from functioning? What about what do you want to do? What would you love to do in the future? First contact with services must start with a positive conversation that explores strength, resilience and builds hope and creates positive relationships. If you've got I always love the magic wand question. If you had a magic wand and you wanted to create your wonderful life, what would it look like? Get people to think about those things rather than thinking about the deficits. Creative opportunities must be central to a services offer and involve a network of community partners. Not seen as an add-on, periphery, or less important, but as engaging somebody to really move on with their lives and look forward. Peer supporters must play a vital role in linking people with the community opportunities. They have the knowledge and the ability to inspire, and we haven't put the word there, but paid peer supporters.
Yeah.
Not, drinking from the font, of
ideas.
Say again?
Drinking from the fountain of ideas.
That's it. Pay for it, support people with paid employment. Services for women, women suffer multiple disadvantages. So there's different issues for women, particularly around childcare and stuff like that. Women with lived experience of multiple disadvantage must be involved in designing and delivering women-only services and spaces. Get those women involved and make it woman-friendly. Forget the blokes. Think about the women, doing it, sisters doing it for themselves, really, and making it friendly and engaging with them. Women need multiple safe, women-only spaces across the community. They need to be discreet and only known to women to avoid people who congregate with mixed services. Now that's really difficult, but with mixed services, there can be perpetrators of domestic violence there, which means those women won't go to those services. So there needs to be services just specifically for women to go to, away from the blokes. And services need to be trauma-informed, staffed by women, and appropriate for women with children. Embed ambitious co-production recommendations. All services with people experiencing multiple disadvantages must employ, and we use the word there, employ peer supporters, and usually with employment, even for Uber you get paid for it. So, pay people. There must be structured, supported pathways for services to employ people across all roles, not just in peer support, but in leadership roles. We've got Darren here from Stoke. Stoke have done great things, and there's a massive sort of ladder of people with lived experience in different roles, that you guys have created, so hats off. Do you know what I mean? And more places need to do what Stoke have done. People with lived experience must co-produce strategic decision-making, commissioning, design of services, and the evaluation of those services. Lived experience counts. As Ming said, nothing about me without me. So lived experience needs to be there at all levels. And there must be appropriate budgets allocated to facilitate co-production in each area. This must include supporting training and empowering lived experience representative groups. So when you've got lived experience, offer people education, offer them training that will basically, allow them to move forward. And finally, what does the perfect service look like? Well, this came, as it said, from one of the NECG members. An ideal service would have a team of people that worked with you to plan your journey through treatment together. It would have your drug worker managing your script and different detox rehab options, a psychologist supporting you with your mental health, and a housing worker planning to get you into suitable accommodation, and a peer mentor who could be your go-to person and help you get involved with things that have got nothing to do with drug treatment. Fun activities and stuff, things that remind you what you want to stop using. That's a perfect service. That's what Changing Future should take on. That's what Changing Future areas should look like. And that's the end of our death by PowerPoint.